we feel that this budget is cut to the minimum now. We have spent quite a bit of time studying the budget, looking at the priority items to try to give the services that are needed and still hold the budget to what we considered a very minimum program.
One other area of concern was additional money for the police department, fire department. Has anything developed in that area?
No, that was discussed also this morning, and we had figures that were in the brochure when we gave the first briefing with the council, showing alternates that could be considered and what those alternates would cost and what it would mean on the tax rate.
The bill that I take most pride in passage is the Cold War GI Bill, because I had to fight 3 presidents, 2 in my own party. I fought that bill for 8 years. I had senators who were good friends said, "Ralph, I'll vote for you, I'll support you, but you can never win. The Defense Department's against you. You're wasting your time. Why don't you quit?" I said, "I'm not going to quit till we won."
I've discussed this with at least one member of the Tarrant County Legislative Delegation and will mention it to others. In a governmental body, we win some contests and we lose others. I firmly believe that majority rule should prevail, and if I lose, I think it's proper to lose to a majority.
You're saying you no longer have to go to Washington for local programs?
Or you no longer have to go to Washington or to the regional level for decisions on such matters as urban renewal, model cities, public housing, and FHA.
Is this normally accepted by the city fathers in, say, Dallas and Fort Worth?
Well, this has been in response to encouragement from all of the people that we do business with, city officials, housing authority officials, renewal authority officials. They're very much in agreement with the concept of our reorganization, and we expect their cooperation as we put this into effect.
Well, of course, the women have always carried their responsibilities on an equal basis, so there'd be no change there. I think that American citizens should, seriously. I think they should have the same rights, the same opportunities for education, for employment, for decent housing, and I think that all Americans should carry the same responsibilities, yes.
One notable area of discrimination against males is in the area of courts of law, primarily divorce courts. Can you foresee the day when men will have equal rights with women?
I think there is considerable discussion about domestic matters, and I think, as a matter of fact, that in some cases men, the alimony has treated men unfairly.
Of course, Ben is really a knowledgeable young man about governmental affairs, and you never know how far anyone can go.
I would say that if he continues to develop as he has the past 6 or 8 years in governmental circles and bides his time and doesn't get in too big a hurry, that no doubt he does have a great political future ahead of him.
We're going to cover the points of whether or not we consider the Dallas County jail facilities adequate and all that we should expect of a confinement and a correction facility. You're going to find what our recommendations are for changes, for innovations or continuations of aspects of the program which we would want changed or would want continued.
What do you hope to accomplish?
Well, in their education, places that were simply names now become realities to them, so that their imagination expands, their whole outlook, their scope of education will change with experience there in Rome and in Greece.
As you see it now, will this be an annual treat for university?
We expect this to continue as part of our standard program. One of the interesting things about this is it is our core program. This is what we expect of the students, not a frill on the side, but it's part of their central education.
I'd like to talk to a couple of young people, see what they think about this program. Excuse me, what is your name?
Raul Perales.
And what's the first name?
Raul.
Raul, what do you think you're going to get out of this trip?
Oh, well, it's hard to say. I'm just really enthusiastic about it. I know coming into touch with another culture, it'll really be something great. I just know it.
Hope you have a nice time. What is your name?
Ruth Ann Just.
And Ruth Ann, do you think you'll get any studying done?
Well, it's hard to say, but I sure hope so. There are going to be so many things to see, but we'll fit in study somehow.
Fine, thank you. And your name?
Mary Sombranowitz.
Now, you're laughing about her getting any work done. What about yourself?
I'm not too sure.
You're just not too sure at all. All right. This is a group of about 60 young sophomores at the University of Dallas. This is going to be a regular treat for the university starting this fall. It may be a lot of fun, but it's also going to be a lot of work. This is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move at the University of Dallas.
There are a lot of jokes going around the country nowadays about how the long hairstyles are driving barbers out of business. Well, it's not a joke here at the University of Texas at Arlington. After 50 years, the campus barbershop is about to close. I asked its proprietor, Wayne Stout, why he's going to leave.
Due to lack of help and slowness of business.
Is the fact that most young people are wearing their hair long affecting you in any way?
It has all effect on it. Everyone nearly is wearing their hair longer now. And therefore they go from 5 to 6 weeks for a haircut, between haircuts, and instead of 2 to 3. And that has cut money down, and that does help.
So after 50 years, this landmark, the UTA Barbershop, located now in the basement of the Student Union Building, is closing. Jay Lewis, Channel 8 News on the Move, Arlington. In other words, across the nation, barbers are having trouble.
Yes.
Well, I noticed some barbers going into a business of styling the long hair, more or less like a women's style salon. Have you considered that?
I have thought about it, but they are having their troubles too.
In other words, people who are wearing the hair long don't particularly want to spend $10 for style.
That's right. The money situation there. And they learn to put the style of set in themselves after they have their hair cut.
Where are you planning?
Well, we're discussing the prison farm study report that is anticipated to be completed and presented to the Dallas County Commissioners Court, and that will be within approximately 30 days. The committee right now is in an adjoining room. We've been working since 10 o'clock this morning going over a preliminary draft of the recommendations of this Prison Farm Study Committee to the Commissioners Court. You ask what areas it will cover.
We feel that the decisions regarding HUD programs can be better made on a local level by people who live in the community. And in response to this, we're creating 5 area offices in this region, and they will have total authority to commit for projects and also to fund any programs that the HUD has to offer.
If a marriage breaks up, and where usually there's blame on both sides, it seems to me it ought to be settled on the merits of that specific case.
Because 2 members voted a 6% pay increase when 2 others were absent, the Tarrant County Commissioners Court has been locked in controversy for more than a month. In some counties, the legal advisors have said that such an action is invalid. In others, it has been approved. I would like to see this source of contention clarified by the legislature and a law passed requiring an affirmative vote of a majority of the membership before an order of the court can be entered on the minutes.
This fellow doesn't ask a lot. Just a halfway decent shot at a good job. The opportunity to house his family adequately and to see his children's education limited only by their ability to learn. Black or white, Protestant, Catholic, or whatever, I believe he deserves at least the opportunity to achieve these things. But he's also the fellow who's seeing every level of government take a bigger bite out of his hide every day. Here at home, he's getting the bad news about tax increases, getting it from his school district, city, and county right now. If he's one of the many people on fixed incomes, he has to be getting desperate.
These will be undoubtedly quieter. And you notice you can't hear them in this office. Take off when you're on the side of the runway. It's when you're a couple of miles down at the end of the runway.
That's when they start putting out the noise?
That's what I think.
What about the big wide-bodied engines? Will they be quieter at that distance?
They're quieter. They're considerably quieter engine all the way around.
And you think residents around airports will actually be glad to see these planes come?
Comparatively speaking. But I'll say this, that lots of people don't like any noise if they think they can soon get some money for it.
Pretty much to the
Mr. Agnich, one of the biggest problems we have is education on ecology, and you're talking about putting it into the schools as a required course. Who would fund this?
Well, this, of course, would have to be done by the states and by the local districts. Essentially, our job would be to work with the state departments of education, with local groups, and we would provide the teaching material, the framework of the courses. But obviously, this has to be done by the local school districts. This is not any federal education aid program.
What is your opinion of the air and water pollution levels in the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Well,
well, we have quite a, as you use the word, montage of ways to express problems of young people, and then we're going to move into the solution through Christ. One of the songs is called The Man. Another one that was at the top of the charts a few months ago is called Jesus is a Soul Man. And when I do that song, I'll have slides popping on and off of Christ. But these are paintings relating him to 2,000 years ago. So right along beside these shots of Christ, we'll have movies of contemporary scenes, people walking down the street, rockets blasting off to the moon, everything that's happening right now in the 20th century.
Tell me this, what would you hope for these young people to take back with them to their various cities throughout the nation?
That Christ relates to people now, that Christ knows our problems now, because he was on this earth as a human being. He lived all of the emotional upsets and things that cause us to be uptight. He knows exactly what they are, and that when we go through these problems, we know that he is there to be a friend and kind of a help to bring us through these problems too. We've got a companion, in other words, that has lived this before. He knows our problems, and he can really help.
Selection of the individual insurance company?
This is one of our problems. I mean, a person usually gets what he pays for. And we have the problem that people just will choose companies sometimes that are not the most reputable companies.
What happens then to the company itself? What are some of the alternatives that the Commissioner of Insurance has?
Well, he could ask or bring in another company to take over the assets of this company and manage it and to reorganize it. Or he could possibly throw the company into possible bankruptcy and just reorganize the company itself with its own officers.
In the event that either of these things occurred, what would happen to the policyholder? Would his insurance be canceled, or would it be continued in some form with some other company?
No, his insurance would continue in force, and he might have a lien against his cash values. But I might add that there's a study was made quite a few years ago, but it's still applicable. And in a 23-year period up to 1932, even during the Depression, the actual loss to policyholders was about 29 cents per $1,000 of reserves. So it's still a tremendous investment.
They have an impossible task to adequately represent 1,300,000 people in Dallas County. Now, there's no way that they, on their salary and their staff that's allowed by the state, that they can represent all of the people that Senator Ike Harris is called upon to represent, and all of the people that Senator Mosey represents, and all the people that Senator McCool represents.
I think this need not be, because the legislator should be close to the people in the district, as well as throughout the county, because the type of laws that are written affect the county as a whole and not one particular district. It is his job to keep close to all of the people of the county. He, of necessity, being elected at large, must represent all of his district, but also all the districts and all the people entitled to representation.
Mr. Driver, to what extent do you feel your union is willing to negotiate with the city?
At least a 10% wage increase.
Would you accept less than that?
I would recommend it to the membership, and if they care to accept less than that, well, then that would be up to them.
To what extent is the union willing to create a work stoppage?
To the full extent.
How many union members do you think would participate in such a stoppage?
It would probably run 400 to 500 to begin with, and then we would probably have a chain reaction in other departments, which has been our experience in other cities where this work stoppages have taken place.
And you do assume that in the case of a work stoppage that non-union members would also walk out?
This has been our experience in other cities. The non-union members join the union members.
Do you think a walkout would be effective to the city, or would McMahon just complete his promise to fire anybody who walked out?
I think it would be very effective, and as far as his promise to fire anybody that walked out, well, we take this as a direct threat that 5% has been offered, and you can just take it and like it, and that's all you're going to get.
County Auditor Benson appeared before the Commissioners' Court this last Monday and said in open court that he thought that he might be able to certify a 3 or 4% increase, but that he would like to have a week to study it. Now, it hasn't been quite a week, and now he says that he cannot certify it. Did he give any reason why he couldn't?
After going through all of the various amounts of money that we have, he come up with a figure of only about $23,000 at the end of 1970.
Now, what about this business of amending the budget? Do you personally feel that there is some way that we can find 3, 4, or even 6% for the employees' pay raise?
The only thing that I can say about that we have amended the budget every year that I've been on the court.
Well, the answer is fairly simple. The town has grown in the past few years from a small farming community to virtually a boom town. And according to City Manager R.B. Sherrill, there's been an estimated $20 million increase in the tax roll over the past year. Now, this means with the present $1.50 per $100 valuation, that there will be about 5 cents more for general fund operation than last year. Sherrill also says part of the secret is in not raising the tax rate is carefully reappraising and changing where needed to do a better job, continually each year and not just at budget time. However, it does look like that Richardsonites will be in for a water rate increase due to the increase in rate charged by the Dallas and North Texas Municipal Water Districts. This is Carl Mayo in Richardson for Channel 8 News on the Move.
Sacred fund that cannot be transferred. But other funds that you might have, you can transfer to one use or another use, generally.
It already been settled.
We don't know what will happen to the money. We believe that this was to be a benefit for the prisoners of war. I think that I can say in all honesty that should anything come my way, that it will be used to the very best advantage in helping to bring the prisoners of war home. But under the circumstances right now, we're just not very sure of anything.
The reason I object to the at-large system is it is not representative. And the senatorial district that I'm privileged to represent, which has 1/3 of the population of this county at this time, does not have 1/3 of the members of the House at this time. And I think we're entitled to equality of representation.
In Dallas County, a county with a population well in excess of 1,300,000 people, were so divided there would be thousands of people who lived in one district, worked in another, attended church in another, sent their children to school in still another.
I think this, that I attended a recent meeting of the Air Quality Control Board, and where a recommendation was made that we allow pollution levels that are in excess of those which currently exist here. Now, one of the greatest attractions of Dallas is that it, by and large, is better than the other larger metropolitan areas, and it would seem to me to be disastrous to worsen our standards.
Well, we've been in a process for the last 8 months of experimenting and observing several different methods. We have sonic, sensory, perimeter, and patrols. We've about decided the route that we will go, which we won't divulge at this time.
Why won't you divulge it?
Well, we'd rather catch a few people before it becomes common knowledge.
In your experimental stage, the last 8 months, how effective has your systems been?
In 2 locations, it's been exactly 100%. And the other 2 locations that we experimented with, it did I'd say 75 to 80% decrease.
Now, you've installed the system in some schools already, and you'll have it completely installed by when?
Oh, we expect to have several more by the first of the year, at least.
What are you hoping for in the area of effectiveness?
We hope for a reduction of approximately at least 80%.
We asked for retractions from the defendants in the case, and they were not forthcoming. Therefore, we are seeking what recourse we can to air the matter and to set the record straight by filing this lawsuit.
Financially and damages, what are you asking for?
Well, we've asked for actual damages in the amount of $250,000. And because we feel, and we have so alleged, that the statements were made against him by innuendo, directly, by implication, were so grossly unfair and false that we've asked punitive damages for doing this. We've asked $1 million in what we call exemplary or punitive damages against the defendants.
Well, there is a state law which provides that they cannot be diverted to other uses other than airport uses. And of course, then we have our obligations under our bonded indebtedness, and under those obligations, we must keep some of them intact.
This is one of the situations where you have to keep a certain amount of revenue in order to pay off the bonds. Is that right?
This is correct. Plus, they require a little bit of cushion there to be sure that you're in good financial condition.
From a legal point of view, is there any reason why some other funds can't be transferred around and so give the citizens of Dallas a tax break?
It depends on what funds you're talking about. If you're talking about water department funds, no.
Well, I had asked my friends to sell tickets to this game, and they believed that this was to be a benefit for the prisoners of war. There were many people who wanted to do anything along these lines that they could to help the prisoners of war. Last night after the news, they began calling me and saying, has the benefit been canceled and why? And this was the first that I had heard of the cancellation. I didn't know why.
So what did you do then?
This morning I talked with Mr. Copeland, and he told me that yesterday 2 black men had entered his office and threatened to picket the ball game if it was a benefit for the prisoners of war. As a result of that, he canceled the benefit.
Well, hopefully it is an effort on the part of the officials involved, the election board, in this case Mr. Ellis, and on the part of ourselves, the Commissioner's Court, to see if we can meet the problems together, and we're doing this. We've been going after it on that basis.
Oh, I'm not unhappy. I anticipated it, and you just have to take these things as they come and do the very best that you can with the machinery you have to work with.